Yes, guys, and welcome to the Sunderland vs Huddersfield match review, where Sunderland have just been knocked out of the League Cup in the second round against Huddersfield on penalties after it was 1-1 at full time. I know it's shit, but we move on. It definitely wasn't our priority. There's a lot of negatives to pick out of that game, which I will get into, but there are some positives. I know it's hard to glean positives when you get knocked out against opposition that are 2 leagues below you, with no disrespect to Huddersfield. And if you have a look at that on paper, it should have done a hell of a lot better, and there are reasonings why, I believe, and that's what I'm going to discuss in this video. But before we get into it, if you could do us a favour, hit the like button. I know it's frustrating, I know it's only the cup and no one's really too arsed, but hitting the like button, it would be massively appreciated, and subscribe if you are new. But getting into it, as I alluded to, this should have been a lot better. This is the lineup, and I did say before the game, when I did have a look at that lineup, I was quite happy with the midfield, I was happy with the forward line. The back line, the back four, worried me a bit in that obviously Huggins hasn't had much game time. You've got the 2 new full-backs playing at centre-back, of course. Mcalpine, he can play as a centre-back, but he is primarily a right-back. You've got Masuaku, who's a left wing-back by trade, and Harrison Jones, who, as we all know, is a central midfielder, but he's been shoehorned in at left-back again, as he was throughout the entirety of pre-season. So that did worry me a little bit. But they weren't the concern for me. In that first half, we set up as a 4-4-2. We had Rigg on the right, and we had Roberts on the left. Of course, we had Lafay and Neil in the middle. Straight away, you could see. But Roberts, the only thing he can do, and his main thing, is cutting in from right to left on that left foot. So to put him on the left-hand side, you basically just immediately got him sort of shackled down and cancelling out the only positive he can bring to a game, or at least his attempted positive that he can bring to a game. So he was absolutely pocketed by Lyndon Gooch, of course, who was welcome back to the stadium alight. Roberts didn't stand a chance against him, lost the ball constantly, and Gooch was just fantastic against him. And it looked really easy for Gooch, to be honest with you. Rigg on that side, he wasn't fantastic. And then you had Lafay and Neil in the middle, who just did not command that centre at all. They had one man more in that midfield, and they were just walking through Lafay and Dan Neil so easily. Both of them, to be fair, as much as I do like each player individually and for different reasons and what have you, they were weak as piss in there, and they were just walking past him. And because we had that 4-4-2 and we had Guiu and Easter up top, on paper that looks fantastic. It sounds great, but playing 2 up top against a side that were generally sitting with a low block, a little bit like Burnley, of course, totally different levels in quality. But when you're playing 2 up top against a team that are generally going to sit back, and half the time when we've got the ball in their half, their back line are just permanently sat on the edge of their box. There's no way you can get balls in behind for Isidore or any runs that Guiu's going to make. The only way you can get them into the game is if Guiu or Isidore decides to come deep to come collect it, which they chose not to do. So the only way you can get them in on the ball or get them involved at all is if balls from out wide are inch perfect. And my God, those crosses were so far from inch perfect. They were absolutely abhorrent in that first half. Just so many crosses that are either hitting the first man or going way out into the stands. It was just shocking. We didn't have a shot on target, I don't think, in that first half, from what I can remember. I think Harrison Jones got a header from like a sort of tight angle from a corner or something like that went way over the bar, and that was all I can really remember in that first half. But they did break the deadlock, and to be fair to him, it was a class strike. Corner comes in, we head it away. They've got like 2 or 3 players stood on the edge of the box. No one is anywhere near him, but can't take anything away from the strike. Yes, no one's come out to him at all, but the volley sort of outside of the boot just flies into that top right-hand corner. It's a brilliant strike to give Huddersfield something to cling on to. but yeah, that first half, we had absolutely nothing. Zero creativity. And, you know, like Lafay in there when he's on the ball, losing it a lot. Neil's balls, losing them a lot. There was just so many under-hit passes, over-hit passes, slowing down the play, passes behind players. And to be honest with you, the only players that actually came out of that first half, and I thought, there's something about him here, is both Masuaku and Mcalpine. Mcalpine in particularly at the end of the game, I thought he was fantastic. And I don't want to go overboard because, of course, we're no disrespect to Huddersfield, but it is League One opposition. I thought he was absolutely outstanding. He looked like a Rolls Royce at the back, you know, whenever any of their players were sort of combating him, he just so easily just shove him off the ball, win it off him, turn him and spread the play. Masuaku on his side, his diag balls were absolutely outstanding. But other than that, everyone else looked shit. They really did. It was terrible. And the system had to be changed. at half-time because we just weren't doing anything. And when the system was changed at half-time, when it was 1-0 to Huddersfield, we come out a totally different team. Yeah, it weren't perfect, but we were infinitely more attacking, infinitely more dangerous. We changed it to a sort of 4-3-3 as we usually do. We had Dan Neil in the middle when we had Lefay and Rigg sort of just ahead of him in that sort of triangle in the middle. Isidore on the left-hand side, Roberts on the right, and Guillou up top. Isidore immediately so much more involved in the play, and he was having Lyndon Gooch's life. He was just taking him on again and again and again, getting balls in the box. Yeah, granted the crosses weren't fantastic, but we're making loads more chances, half chances and big chances straight away early on-ish in that second half. Rigg closes down really well. The ball ricochets to Guillou. He takes on his man one-on-one with the keeper at an angle, but the keeper closes the angle really well, makes himself big and makes the save. But loads of chances here and there, half chances. We had them pinned in their box for the majority of that second half, which you should have expected anyway from the off, but that first half was just horrendous to watch. But we started to play a lot better. Movement off the ball was a lot better because there were spaces in there now, because now we have an extra body in the midfield and it frees up certain players here and there. So Mukiele and Masuaku had very little to do. They were just sat on the halfway line for a lot of it. But Masuaku, like I said, he was getting the ball, pinging inch-perfect balls out either to Rigg or to Roberts or to Isidore on his side. And he looked fantastic. And Mukiele was stepping in very well, looked really calm and assured on the ball. And like I said, just really, really strong. It was great to see him. Great to see him out there. But we did eventually break, well, not the deadlock, should I say. We did finally get a goal ourselves. And it was Guillou. And it was Alexic who come on. And this is what I was going to mention as well, because, of course, I was saying Isidore looked so lively, looked fantastic. He looked like the only player that was actually going to start doing something. Then he brought Isidore off and brought Alexic on. And I thought, oh, no, this ain't going to work. Alexic, pretty much his first touch since coming on. He's up against his man on that far side and left-hand side. Cuts in. It's a beautiful ball in. He did a couple of these balls that were really dangerous where he just sort of dinks it, but with a bit of spin and curve on it. And it's just begging to be headed in. And Guillou was there to knock it into the back of the net. And then sadly, just as we were starting to get a bit of momentum, of course it had to be done, but there was a medical emergency in the crowd, so the game was brought to a halt for a considerable amount of time. I hope whoever it was who was being seen to and being treated was okay. I've done a little bit of digging online. I believe a kid got the leg trapped between a couple of chairs or something along those lines. I don't really want to speculate, but that's what I've read. I could be totally wrong, but hopefully he is all right or she is all right or whatever the situation was. I hope the fan is okay. But then, of course, because there's so much time, the players are standing around waiting and waiting and waiting. When the game came back, when the game started to be played again, that momentum was sort of killed, and then Huddersfield actually broke a couple of times and a couple of really good chances and didn't put it away, but ultimately it ended up going to penalties. And of course, all five of the first five we scored. They were actually really, really good penalties, a lot of them. But then eventually it fell to Alexic, and he's missed his, he's dragged it, and we are out of the cup. So yeah, granted, it wasn't a priority, and I think if we just played that system from the off, and I think we really should have done, I don't see the sense in 4-4-2. I think the sort of bare minimum thinking of the 4-4-2 is, okay, I've got two strikers here that aren't playing up top in our system in the Premier League, in their first team. Let's just chuck them both on in their position. So I get that kind of thinking, but against a team that is coming to the stage of light, they're going to have a bit of a low block. They're going to sit back. It's just not going to work. It's almost promoting just hoofing balls into the box, and our crossing ability at the best of times is shit. So they weren't going to do anything. So yeah, an awful performance in that first half. Second half was much improved, but it wasn't enough at the end of the day. But yeah, so we are out of the cup. I'm not too fussed, to be honest with you. Of course, it would have been nice to keep going. You don't want to lose any game, but yeah, I guess this is the sort of saying that everyone says now we can just solely focus on the league. But it would have been nice to have a little bit of a cup run to give these sort of fringe players some game time. But I tell you what, particularly going off that first half performance, I don't think any of the first team players were even remotely arsed about their place in the team, because none of these were going to get near it with how bad it was. But like I said, second half, Isidore for me, he looked so good on the left-hand side. If we are going to pick out any positives, of course, Guillou got his first goal. He was really working his arse off, the lad, to be fair, but the service was piss poor to him half the time, other than the goal. Yeah, maybe he should have done better with that chance when Rigg pressed and he managed to get in on goal. You could argue he should maybe have a bit more composure, try and slip it around the keeper. Felt like it was a bit of a hit in hope, but the keeper did really well to make himself big anyway. But he got himself a goal, so that's great. But yeah, like I said, there's not really too many positives to go for, and it was, as I said prior to the game, when you just throw players together like this, regardless if it looks good on paper, which it does, it really should be enough to beat Huddersfield, which is the annoying thing. With no disrespect to them, it should be, but when it's a lot of players that haven't really played together before, it's a new system. I don't really play 4-4-2, just lob them all together and just hope it happens. There's no cohesion there. You can just tell they're just not gelled. It just looked really unhinged and a bit broken. But yeah, you can see, as I keep repeating myself now, when you change the system something more familiar, we'll infinitely better. But I'll leave it there, guys. I'm not going to overthink a game in the second round of the Carabao Cup. But fair play to Huddersfield. Best of luck in the next round. We dust ourselves down, and we have Brentford this weekend in the Premier League. I'll leave it there. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Apologies, I sound very monotone. I'm just exhausted. I'm so tired tonight, guys. But do us a favour, hit the like button for me. Subscribe if you're new. But for now, keep the faith. How are the lads?